Hey everyone, the Gaming Rev here. After 3 incredibly intense weeks in real life, I finally managed to be true to my word and put together a build video for my PvP StaminaTemplar. This is an incredibly powerful build designed specifically for 1vx that however requires some skills on the part of the player to make it really shine. As usual, I will go through the build in detail, explaining the reasoning behind my choices. But I will also provide various gears alternatives for people that may not have access to some of these sets that I'm using. Before moving on, let me say a massive thank you to all those who have liked my latest StaminaTemplar build video and also subscribed. Your positive feedback has been amazing, and I can only hope that you will enjoy this build as much as the previous. If you are new to the channel or you haven't done so just yet, please consider leaving a like and a subscribe. Anyway, without any further ado, here is my 1vx PvP StaminaTemplar build. Before looking at the build, let me start by saying that even though I have had the chance to test this build quite a bit during the last mid-year mayhem, I have not had the chance to record decent game clips. My life has been insanely busy in the last month or so, and it's a miracle I'm able to release this video before going away for 3 weeks on Friday. Also, forgive my cavernous voice. Last night Italy won the Euro Cup final against England and I lost my voice in the process. Anyway, let's look at the build, starting off with the race. In my humble opinion, Orcs are the best stamina race for this build. They get a line of max stamina and max health, a little self-healing which never hurts, a ton of weapon damage as well as sprint speed and reduced sprint cost. However, this doesn't mean that there aren't any other viable races. Other very viable alternatives would be Imperials, Nords, Wood Elves, and hybrid races like Khajiits, Dark Elves and Argonians. I've actually made a tiers list video on the best starting races that you may want to have a look at. The link to the video will appear in the top right corner of your screen now. For my Mundus, I decided to go for the lady to buff my resistances, as I am currently running with 5 medium pieces. This patch damage is just insane, and the new CP system forces you to make a choice between damage and survivability, something that Zos is actually trying to address at the moment. This means that it's very hard to pump out as much damage as we do with this build, while retaining decent survivability for 1vx. That's why I decided to go for the lady. If you are running in a group, you can choose something else. I also run Bewitched Sugar Skulls for my food. Let's take a look at my buffed stats. As we do so, let me point out a couple of important things. First of all, this stat sheet is not based off a trial dummy. That would be dishonest, and that's just not who I am. Whatever you see is whatever you get with this build. The only reason why I use a freeze frame is because it just makes it so much easier for editing for me. Secondly, a lot of stats that make this build so strong actually do not show on the stat sheet, so please listen up. We've got almost 20k max magicka, which is very important on this build as we run 3 magicka skills. 32k max health, which I feel is essential in PvP nowadays and especially in 1vx situations. Almost 32k max stamina, which is lower than what I usually run, but that is very much compensated by its damage. I have low magicka recovery, although it's still quite sufficient. Decent health recovery and a stamp recovery that on paper is only 1300 but in reality is just over 2600 when you consider 484 recovery from restoring focus and up to 840 recovery from a set that we're using but that is not showing up on the stat sheet. My weapon damage is almost 7k with just over 28% weapon critical. My physical penetration is just under 4k on paper. However, we do have access to both minor and major breach, which brings it to a total of 13k, even though we are running a two-edged sword instead of a maul. My resistances are 24k spell resistance and 21.6k weapon resistance on my front bar, while on my back bar there are 26k and 23k respectively. However, all these numbers go up by 3600 when my monster set procs, bringing it to a total of 29k physical resistance and 26k spell resistance, which very much feels like wearing heavy armor. I also enjoy 1822 crit resistance, which nowadays is super important. Let's take a look at my gear. This build is heavily reliant on proc sets. If you do not have access to some of them, don't worry, I will provide you with very viable yet accessible alternatives. On my back bar, I run the crafted set Clever Alchemist. For those of you who do not know what it does, it provides 2 lines of max health, 1 line of weapon and spell damage, and also an extra 675 weapon and spell damage for 20 seconds every time you drink a potion in combat. Because it's only active on your back bar, you must remember to drink a potion there, never on your front bar. Also, because it has a downtime of almost 10 seconds, you must be clever about when to pop your potion and the proc set. It's not called Clever Alchemist by accident. Without it procced, you still rock 6k weapon damage, so you don't have to have it active all the time, but only when you need that extra kick. So, you cannot pre-buff it. You can only use it after you've engaged your enemy. So, as in real life, think before you drink. On my front bar, I run an amazing set called Essence Thief. The first 3 bonuses are exactly like Spriggan's, giving you 2 lines of max stam and 1 line of weapon and spell damage. But it is with the 5th item bonus that the magic happens. Every time you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, you draw essence from the enemy that, when picked up, not only heals you for a nice 4.2k health, but it also restores 4.2k stamina. Not only that, it increases all your types of damage, both stamina and magicka based damage, by 10% for 10 seconds with a 10 seconds cooldown. This means the Essence Thief is not just a sustain set, which translates into more than 800 stamina recovery, but a damage set too. Just to put it into context, Spriggan's gives you physical penetration but no sustain. Deadly Strikes gives you 20% damage increase but only to your jabs and gives you no sustain. Essence Thief, on the other hand, gives you damage and sustain at the same time. The only drawback is that you have to learn to light weave and also kite to pick up the essence pool. However, if you're an experienced player, you will know that kiting is an essential aspect of the game, particularly if you're running Camo Hunter, which buffs your damage against flanked enemies, something that we will look at later. Anyway, this is what the Essence Thief proc looks like. When you light or heavy attack the opponent, green essence will flow from them and create a pool 5 meters away. Once you pick it up, you will get the buff and glow green for 10 seconds, which looks quite nice in my opinion. Then, alongside Essence Thief, I run Ring of the Wild Hunt for a buff to my movement speed, which is super useful for kiting, picking up the essence and for repositioning. For my monster Helm, I run Bloodspawn. It provides stamina recovery, which is always helpful, especially when you can't pick up the essence for whatever reason. as well as resistances. But what I love the most about it is the ultimate generation, as there is no worse feeling while 1vxing than being unable to put one or more players down because your ultimate isn't ready. Last but not least, I run one piece of trainee for an extra line of max health. Good alternatives to these sets would be running Spriggans on your front bar and sustain with either Torque of Tonal Constancy or Engine Guardian. If you use Torque of Tonal Constancy though, you would need to run Blue Food, as you need to make sure to stay under 50% Magicka to access the stamina recovery. I run 5-piece medium armor and 2-piece heavy, 4 of which are in pen and 3 well fitted. I also run a 2-edged sword instead of a maul, but only because I haven't managed to drop a maul just yet. Armor traits and enchants are as displayed, but they're also entirely up to you. The only thing that I would say though is to make sure to have at least 3 well fitted pieces, as roll dodging is effectively the best means of damage mitigation in the game, and one of the reasons why stamina builds generally outshine Magicka ones in PvP. With regards to skills, there are some flexible spots. Let's start with Razor Caltrops. The reason why I have it slotted is primarily because it is super useful in 1vxing, especially when you throw them inside a small room or at choke points. Not only does it slow down and damage the enemies, but afflicts them with major breach. If you run in a group, you'd probably want to slot in something else, possibly Repentance or an Execute. Then we've got Rally for major brutality, minor endurance and a burst heal. Then Camo Hunter, primarily to increase your damage against flanked enemies. And by the way, it's very easy to flank an enemy in this game. All you need to do is to picture a 45-degree cone in front of them as if they were hitting you with a Dawnbreaker, and then strike them from anywhere outside the area. If you keep on kiting, which you will to pick up, your essence anyway, you will almost always be flanking them. So very, very easy to proc Camo Hunter. Then biting jabs. One of the reasons why I love StaminaTemplars so much is the fact that their spammable has major savagery built in it. This means that you don't have to necessarily slot Camo Hunter, and you can simply use tri-stat pots, which are very important to replenish your Magicka pool too. Then we've got Toppling Charge as a gap closer and a hard stun. What I love about Toppling Charge is the fact that it sets enemies off balance. This means that if you fail to pick up a couple of essences and you're running low on juice, all you need to do is topple charge someone, set them off balance, and then restore twice as much resources with a heavy attack on them. And for my ultimate, I went for Dawnbreaker or Smiting. I love the damage and the AoE stun. When fully buffed, the tooltip is insane. 22k direct damage plus another 22k dot over 6 seconds. However, it costs quite a bit, and sometimes it's hard to land on highly mobile enemies. A great alternative is Crescent Sweep. It's very cheap and it hits in a 360-degree circle around you, and the dot it applies emanates from you rather than stick to the enemy, so it can't be purged. It is magic damage, but it still gets buffed by Essence Thief and your champion points. So it's entirely up to you what you prefer to run. You may have noticed that I do not run with an Execute. I find it very clunky and easy to dodge. That's where Crescent Sweeps gets really appreciated, as it can be used as a finisher much more readily than Dawnbreaker. On my back bar, I run Race Against Time for movement speed and snare removal, but also for minor force, as this build has a very decent crit chance. Then Vigor for a heal over time, and Extended Ritual, the best cleanse in the game and a decent heal over time as well. I also run Power of the Light for extra burst and minor breach, but especially to activate the passive Prism, which grants ultimate every 6 seconds. Then I've got Restoring Focus for major resolve, stamina sustain, and also a nice heal over time when standing in it. Again, Templars, they just shine in confined spaces, so always try and reposition in confined spaces and take the fight there. Last but not least, I have Spell Wall as a defensive ultimate to pop when it gets too hot and I need to just survive and reposition. Let's now take a look at my champion points. In the green tree, I've got Rationer, Warmount, Gifted Rider, and Steed's Blessings. In the blue tree, I've got Fighting Finesse, Master at Arms, Biting Aura, and Duelist's Rebuff. And this is what the rest of the tree looks like. In the red tree, I've got Slippery, Juggernaut, Rejuvenation, Boundless, Vitality. And this is what the rest of the tree looks like. So there you have it, my StaminaTemplar PvP build for 1vxing and outnumbered situations. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please leave a like and a subscribe. It would be massively appreciated. Thank you all for watching. God bless you all and see you out there. Bye bye.